And in the discussions that we had in formation of the company, we looked at what needs to be registered at the registrar of companies. And in that, we what do you want to do? Well, as long as it focuses on on the, does it need to focus on me or what is on the PowerPoint? Because I'll just be explaining away from the PowerPoint. Yeah, I spent time explaining formation of a company. And the formation which required that promoters.
All right.
Draw up a memorandum of association. A memorandum of association, and I explained what is supposed to be in the memorandum of association. And then we went on to look at share capital. And articles of association. One other important document which is not necessarily registered with at the formation of the company, but it comes at a time when you are allotting shares, share allotment. It's coming at share allotment. You want a company to be operational and you need money, and money comes through the allotment of the shares. And at this point, you need a prospectus. So I'll try to highlight issues that relate to a prospectus. I think the first is just to define generally what a prospectus is, and then I will also highlight what the Companies Act defines, how it is defining a prospectus. Generally, a prospectus is a printed statement that describes an enterprise. So what you do in the in prospectus is to kind of define your organization, your company. So
and that's not our business to say
then
that
you indicate
here.
anything that
week
relates to that company, either the current position or the future. So what you do with this prospectus is you distribute to prospective buyers of your shares. So if you want to register your company or your shares on the stock exchange, what you submit is a prospectus, and in that prospectus you are trying to invite people to buy into that company, to buy shares in that company. It may not necessarily be
And I just assume that you did.
targeted at the general public.
I think I'm talking to one
but
person,
it may
because
be
you were
maybe
here,
a certain sector
but
of the
your colleague was not here.
of people that you want to buy shares into
download
the company.
slides?
But we are going to see the rules
What
that
happened
relate
last week
to
when you had
the
been the one telling me what
prospectus
happened?
to see
Why were most of them not around?
how any issuing of a prospectus is viewed by the law. In this case,
Right.
the Companies Act.
Uh-uh.
In the Companies Act, it says
Check it out.
if you make any invitation
Okay, I don't know. This is bad.
and
Yeah, so
publish
last
that
week we did
invitation
something
or
else.
advertise it
But this week I
or
wanted us to
disseminate it in a newspaper in
look
Malawi
at something
and allow it
regarding
to
to text.
circulate. You can put it
As
on
you
the
say that
TV, you can
we
put
say
it on the
communication
radio.
graphics, usually we look at in
Or
normal
just,
people, I mean, most people's minds, when they say graphics,
distributed to a
they
certain
assume that
section of
it is
people,
pictorial
as long as those
graphics.
people
It's
are above
maybe
15.
a bitmap. But as we look back to the definition of
Or you
graphics,
made
we discover
it,
that
or you made it known
text
to a certain
is
section
part of
of
graphics, right?
the
So
business community.
if we explore communicating
that
using images,
considered
we
to
can
be
also explore
invitation
communication
to the public.
using text or type.
So
Because
you may not call it a
most of the
prospectus
communication,
per se, but if there is
graphic
an
communications
invitation
that we know,
and the
find this text
and the invitation can be looked at in
we have to
those
wonder
three ways.
to know how the impact of
If
text
there is that
the text is
invitation,
used
either in a
different
newspaper or you are
ways,
just
right?
circulating by
Because
the
you
word of
discover
mouth,
there's going
or
to be maybe a design
you are
with a
making
lot of
it
text.
known. It may be
Some design will have
on
very
the
few
notice
text.
board like that one.
Some
But if
will
you
have
intend that
text,
a number of people should
but of
see
different
that
face,
is an invitation
typeface,
to the public.
which is not similar. So you discover there could be
I'm making
a
myself
similarity
clear
in
that
typeface,
there,
or
that
maybe different in the
you may
a font, right?
in your mind
So
you may not
we want us to explore
be thinking of
why or what's the difference between a
the
typeface
whole of Malawi.
and a font.
You may
right?
just be thinking
And
about
also,
the
why do
people
we have to be
maybe in a
concerned
certain
with the
section or
text
city center, for
as a
example,
communication tool?
that
And
focusing
also
on this city center,
try to
and then you advertise
analyze,
on the
maybe
in the newspaper.
go into detail
As long as the newspaper reaches in
the
Sanja
anatomy
or
of
reaches
text,
Stipa,
because we have been seeing
that
text for a very
means
long
any
time,
person
but we never thought about it that
who reads
as a
that
person, because they say
newspaper is
for a
being invited.
graphic designer,
So
you look at the text
that's an
as if
invitation
it's
to the
a
public.
person, right? Meaning, you should be able to describe a text, to say,
challenge
the text I'm seeing
with
here. You could say it, you could look at it and say, okay,
is that
it has got this, it has got all
sometimes
this, it has got that, it does not have this, it means this is
you may
this,
want
right?
to withdraw
Because as you can appreciate, you are
invitation.
really seeing
and if the invitation,
a
the
variety
withdrawal
of text,
only
fonts,
reaches
text typefaces, and you have to
That's
ask
the
yourself, why do we have all these different? For
and
example, we have the normal text talking about the same thing, but now
but the
you
withdrawal
see some other text
reaches
having
Lilong.
some other elongations, right? Some will be like slanting.
That means
Some will
as
be
far as the people
bold.
in Stipa and
Some,
Sanja
so why
are
do we have to
still have
have the same text?
an
Some to be
invitation to
bold,
them.
some to be slanting. What is the main purpose? It's all about communication, but we can explore through that. So yes,
that
I think I'm not going to dwell
this
much on the history,
we are
but
only talking about
the history was traced
that
to
we want
very early
to
civilization.
distribute shares.
This part of
and
history, I think you're going to
ventures.
go
I think,
through it.
I explained
in detail,
shares, I think,
but you see that the years
little more, but
that
I
can be
didn't
traced there, it's like 550
explain
years
the
ago.
ventures, but we will
That's
come to a
where
point where
the
I will
actual
explain
formal
what
text or type
ventures are.
was now place it to be, to say we have got this
we'll
particular
spend a little bit of more time
SIBO
talking about
code type
the companies
that will be used for communication. Because
own
in the
capital.
past, the early communications, according to evidence, were that they were finding like those pictorial, let me say, pictograms, right? Whereby you find in the stone caves, there is a drawing, or let me say, like the caving
Yeah,
of
there
maybe
are some
a cow, right? A caving of
things that
something,
we are going to
which was
discuss
actual,
in terms of the remedies.
I mean, the pictures or figures that resembles the actual image, right? But when it comes to text,
and
it doesn't resemble the actual image, because you see what we read
other
of text,
ways of
you have to
invitations.
understand what the text is talking about.
But
But
this
when
is
the
general
text of a
invitation.
house, it does not look like a house,
I've
right?
said
But
we are
we
going
understood that, okay,
to
this
spend a little bit
syllable
more
plus
time
this is
talking about
means house.
the
So
benches,
you have that
which is
history
the
tracing
loan
back to the
capital that,
earliest civilization of mankind. And according to text, 550
may
years
use.
ago is where
I explained about shares
actual text, like the type that we use.
that
But
we
in
may
terms of
have
using
ordinary shares,
graphics, they did not be traced
which forms
back
the
to
membership of the
25,000
company.
BC.
Ordinary
Right?
shares.
And when you say BC, as we know, is
And
before
then
Christ.
we may have
So that's how far
preferential shares.
we can trace to the drawings, whereby in the caves there were some other
These are
drawings of trees,
of shares.
caves, and the like.
But in addition
right?
to this,
so
you may have
we have all this history,
benches.
and when we
I
go
mentioned that
through
when you are registering
our modern
the
type,
company
just to fast forward, it could be it's now linked to
any of these classes of shares.
I think
their
we're going
value, the nominal value of
what is
these
called
shares,
typography,
or
but now
debentures
it's related to
should be
the invention of what is called the printing press,
in the
right?
memorandum
Because
of association.
when we say
But at
print
this point,
or the type, type has been existing because
we are talking about
it was
now
meant
advertising
to be
the
on
availability
a
of
printed
shares
surface.
and
That's the original
ventures to the general
creation.
public
Because
using any means
do you hear type
or
do you see type?
systems.
When we say, because when I'm talking about type, I'm talking about this,
I will spend a little
the
bit
fonts.
of time.
So do you hear it or do you see it? Can you just take type without looking at it and listen to it, and you're going to listen to something? You can't. So it was not meant like for the
law, the
earliest
Companies Act
civilization. It was meant
it shall
to be printed on
to
something.
make an invitation to the public.
So the person who
ventures
invented the printing
in a
press,
company.
that Johannes
And these are the
Gutenberg
instances
is the one
I think I've
who
mentioned.
invented the
These
printing
three
press. When I say printing
instances,
press,
one,
it was now a machine with these characters.
that
Now
document,
the machine had this specific,
the same way you register the company,
let me say,
you take
they're just calling it the movable types, whereby you have small metallic materials
you make
that contains these letters, right? So the way it were, it was like if you have ever seen this stamp, you've seen the stamp
prospectus.
It was the way it is, whereby imagine it's a stamp. Now
been registered with the
it's not just for
companies,
school or something, but there are text there.
So
each text should have its own, let me say, stamp.
That I'm registering
then
this.
it has to have a machine.
Then
now it will be like, for example, A, B, C, D, E, and now somebody will type. When you type,
on this prospectus,
it will hit the ink.
I don't know
then it will, the ink will be stapled on the, like printed on the paper. So it was something like that. So the idea, it was started by this Johannes Gutenberg. So that's the one who developed the printing press, and now from there
when
we started to have like in Italy, Rome, they started to borrow the idea, then
normally when
modifying
companies are
different types of fonts.
additional shares,
no wonder
those that
you
are
see
on
some
the
other
stock
fonts types whereby you see italics, right?
distribute
Most of the fonts were related to Rome,
the prospectus through banks.
so even
normally
German
the banks
somewhere,
act as
right?
receiving agents
So
for
it started to be developed because normally
they
when
are
it comes
also
to
made
fonts,
available in
it's where we're
many
going to
other
explore
places,
later on
to
to make
it
the differences
possible
because in
as
our
many people as possible to get
I mean in the
a copy of the
typography
prospectus.
or
But
in
some of the information
graphics,
that is in the prospectus
font
is also
and the typeface is
advertised in the
usually
newspaper. That's why the second statement is
confused.
saying, "It shall be lawful
Most people they do use them as if
publish
it means one thing,
a
but we
newspaper
explore that
advertising
the font is another
advertisement
thing,
summarizing
typeface is
what
another
is
thing, but they are
contained in
related,
the prospectus."
right? So something is a bigger thing, something is smaller than the other. So
In the
the
prospectus,
history we're going to explore it
normally
later
at the
on.
end, at the back of the
Now
prospectus, there
we
is a
can
form which you
explore
can
what's
fill
the meaning of
if you want
typography,
to
because
buy
typography now is
shares.
like a broad term.
But this
So
may not be in the
when you say
newspaper
typography,
sometimes.
here it's like it has
And
the actual
normally,
origin,
because
it originates
the newspaper advertisement
Greek,
cannot carry all the
Greek
information
words
that the
of
prospectus carries.
one typos.
Normally,
I
in
think
the
you have
newspaper,
already
they
the
mention
name,
that
the
if
word
you want
typos
a full
before.
prospectus,
Some they say, okay, I
you
was
can go
typing.
to
Oh, it was just typos.
maybe branches
Like it's
of
as if
commercial
it was an
banks
error or something, a typing error.
other
Right?
financial institutions
So
that
typos,
they may want
which
to
means
find.
form,
But definitely,
and
it can be
the
available at
graphia, which means writing, right?
stock exchange,
So if you take a form and graphia, it means it's like you have a form of graphics combination, right? But here it says writing
you must mention
accordance
that
with form,
the
right?
prospectus
So there's a
has
specific
been
form because
registered
this
with
is
the
text
registrar.
or this characters.
So,
it's
apart
just a
from
form,
distributing
right?
the
They are lines. If you can see, we talked
prospectus,
about
you can
vector
also
and
carry some
the
of the
raster
information
images, isn't it?
in newspapers,
So we say
or sometimes on
vector,
TV, they indicate
they are lines, right? It's forms of
that is
lines. Like
summarized information.
when you say E,
And
it's just like
as
a
I've
line that has
said,
been bent
you
like
have
this
to mention
to form E, right?
that
It's nothing
same information
strange.
can be
When you say
found
bitmap, we
through
say
a
it was
prospectus
like
which you can get
an image,
at
right?
certain places.
So here it's like it's going to be a writing now that is according to a certain form, according to the shortest definition. Now, another definition that maybe can be broader. Typography is the science of using letter forms of communication. Maybe this one is a little bit broader. When we say letter forms of communication.
These are the
okay, if you're communicating using
on
letters,
registration when you are registered.
that is typography. So
prospectus.
that's a little bit clear. So if you say, okay, if you are writing, the way you are writing something,
just like
now,
a memorandum of association,
this process of,
every
I know that's a
director
little bit shorter, but we can think about it more because we say we are thinking about communication. Now, when we are communicating, we think about barriers to communication, we think about the message,
himself or
we think about the receiver usually, that's what we say. It's like exactly like normal communication. You don't just communicate without thinking about who is receiving the message, isn't it? So we discover that we have got different types of typefaces, because this
when you are going to the
like a letter is a type. So this type we discover that we have got different types of typefaces, and we have got different forms of what are called the font families.
First person, of course, to sign is
so
the one who is making the
we have to
invitation.
differentiate.
Normally,
So
it's
there is a reason for you as a communicator to decide. Because some, when you are told to write something or to communicate, you don't think much about
if it's a prospectus
or font
for a company that has not
you just select. You say,
yet
I think let me
started
put
operating.
italics.
That means,
but have you ever noticed, like
not
check
the
magazines,
directors, but
check newspapers?
rather the
Do you think they select if those fonts by chance?
directors.
Check normally if you look
So
at magazines,
you
discover there are specific type of fonts that they look like magazines. Let me say magazine-ish.
Directors, or
you can just know the way it looks like a magazine. For people who do like for
as a
musicians,
requirement,
the same.
the agent is signing
There are specific
on behalf of
fonts
someone
that when
else,
they select
you
them
also have
and put them on the album cover, it looks good.
right.
So we will discover that there are
he
specific
is
type of
an authorized person
that will
to do
serve the purpose of that
signing
one, whereby
on
you just
behalf of
want
this person.
something to look beautiful, and there are some that are made to just to communicate, something like that. So typography here,
So,
let's go to this.
but
Say typography
in other respects,
comprises. That's now we have learned that
if
typography is
it's
science
a company
of using letter
proposing
forms
the
for communication.
establishment of
So
this
what is
company,
involved in typography?
that the company
You are going to find
only,
that there are going to be what are called
institution to
typefaces,
sign
right?
the prospectus. It
There's
doesn't
going to be
require
type
all
size.
the directors.
You're going to deal with the lines,
sign.
line
I think
length.
the
You're
difference
going to deal
is,
with spaces. And almost everything. If you have ever been on Word, whatever you do on the Word or graphic software, if you are trying to change,
if the company
increase the space, to make it bold,
it's
to
just allotting
add color,
shares
all
for
those
this time.
are the things that are involved in typography.
It's
But the reason is,
unlike,
whatever you
for
are
example,
doing,
the one
you are
that I'm
doing
talking
it,
about
what you are doing,
for,
because you are trying to communicate
Airtel that was issued last
using
year.
text,
It
right?
didn't require
And there are specific
the directors to sign
type
because the company
of
was
elements
already operational.
that will make
It was
your
just
text
like it's issuing
appear
additional
convincing. You can even give you an
shares
example.
be
Why do we
allotted,
have newspapers like, or let me say, if you know newspapers, when you
Maybe
see
I
a
should
front page of the
explain,
newspaper,
although
so you see
think
there's
I
one
need to
headline
explain
that is very
that
broad, very
what
large
happens
and
is
broad,
that
right?
a company
There are some other headlines that are
can
smaller.
be formed
When you look
by
at the newspaper,
a certain nominal
which
value
headline
of
do you
shares.
go and read first? This
Let's
bigger
say
one or the
100,000.
smaller ones? If you see,
But because of
newspaper,
the
even
operations that you are
magazine,
having,
when there's a
you can
big title,
decide
large font, and
based
there are
on
some
what
other
is
small. Do you
written
go
in
and read the
your
small first,
articles
or
of
you go for the
association
large
to
first?
increase this nominal share
large one. Why is it? Why do you go
number
large
of
one?
shares to,
And
let's say,
that's where you can discover that
150 by
whoever decided
an
to
additional
make that is
100,
headline a large one,
an additional
they
50 shares.
did that
If you do that,
process. I mean that
means,
action or
and
process.
you want to allot
for a
these
purpose.
additional
Because
shares,
a newspaper,
that means the company can
they will have
use
what are called like lead stories. They will say, "This is our main story," right?
its own
So
seal.
to emphasize,
It
to put
can
emphasis on the main story,
advertise for this
they
without
have to
calling for
work
the
with
director
graphics,
to
like
do
work
the
with
signing.
text, right?
Um,
To say, okay, I
but
think because it's a
of course
main story,
there's
let's
a
use
requirement
they will think about
that means you are going
font,
to publish
right? They'll decide this type of font
financial
or face
statements,
typeface.
maybe for,
They will
I think
decide
normally for
something
3
to
years
do with the
prior
font.
to
They will decide something to do with the
advertising
size
of
and
those
all
shares.
that
Then
to emphasize the message. So that's one of the
you
examples
also give a
of how you can
focus
say, because some will ask
how
that
you
why
want to operate in future.
is typography
So
important?
that kind of information
Right?
will
You can
also
use
be
it if
contained
you like to
in
emphasize
that
a message using
prospectus.
text. You do that, or if you like
prospectus
to
that
attract
you
people in a
normally
certain
issue
way, you can do
is
that. Right?
endorsed by an
So
expert. For example, because there will be financial information,
you see that
an
you
expert
talk
can
about
be
typefaces,
your
also visual function, or there's an element of a visual effect that you're going to, or visual purposes, you can try to use it. Also, maybe you're using it for functional. Is there a reason why you're doing it, or maybe artful arrangement whereby you just want
for
to modify the page. So because of that, you're going to
because
look
the
for a
experts,
specific
they can say,
typeface
yes,
that will make it
the
the page
information
look
that is
beautiful,
contained in
something
this prospectus
right?
is true.
So
Relates to
let's now look
how
at
the company is
a
performing.
font
That statement
and
has
the
to
typeface
be
to try to
there.
differentiate the two.
And if you
Because that's,
decide
as I said, that these two are usually
to
confused, right?
to translate that information, for example, a prospectus can be in
A
English,
typeface
and you translate
is
it
a collection of characters,
Chichewa
right?
or Tumbuka.
And
that
the collection of characters,
certified
letters,
by
numbers, symbols,
expert.
punctuation marks, etc.
Yes, the
that are
information that is
designated or designed
translated
to work together,
this information, and it's
like the parts
I
of a
will get
coordinated outfit.
why that is important.
So a collection of characters.
But at this point, what we are
so you can appreciate that in
the
a typeface you're going to have
prospectus
characters
has to be
that
registered.
will be coordinated.
It has to be
I mean,
registered
if it's this, for example,
the
this one,
registrar of
it's a
companies.
typeface, but now
the same
you don't
person who
expect
registers
if it's the A, or for
companies.
example, if any other character
question
has got a specific length, and to find some which is completely different. If you say, I mean, a specific typeface will have all the characters,
if you
meaning
issue
from
a prospectus
B to the end, will have similar elements, right? And they also got to be symbols, symbols that are of the same typeface, and also you have numbers, right? So letters, numbers, and symbols, punctuation marks,
the waiting period
will also be belonging to that, right?
10 days.
And that's why there the shortest definition say
so
a typeface is an alphabet with a certain
is being
design.
issued.
You just, I mean, just think about
the
that the same alphabet, you know,
on a certain day,
but it has got
say
a specific design.
1st of August.
Then you have another alphabet with A, B, C, D, but the design is different. That would be another specific
10 days is
typeface, right?
10
so
working days.
That's the typeface. So we have got so many of them. I think we're going to look
So
at.
in essence,
I think
you are talking of 2 weeks. Because
so a fault,
every week has,
in contrast, is
5
a
working
physical thing.
So it
and
doesn't become
the description of a
until
typeface, right?
That day
And
comes.
in a
So
computer
if,
codes,
for example, you are so desperate
photographic film, or metal,
buy shares in
right
this
now, when
company,
you use
you enter into an agreement
let me
with
see if you can have another
before
one.
this waiting
See if I define
that,
it much more clear.
contract
But the
will
thing
not be
is to
binding.
try to differentiate the
They
two
will
is
consider it
the type the typeface
only
would be
after the
like,
waiting period.
let me say,
has
if it's a
gone.
person, this person, right? Now the font will be describing the person, with whether this person is
But
short,
there may be an underwriting.
whether it's
Underwriting
short,
is not
whether it's
an
tall,
agreement
whether
per
it's
se.
fat,
But
whether
you
it's
can say
thin,
an
or
underwriting is,
I mean, if
insurance company
for example, if I say
saying
40 size 12, right?
this
Normally when we are
person
typing,
who
even
intends to buy shares,
our
we
assignments,
have
we are told that
secured
font size should be
his
12, eh? And they
resources.
say
For
maybe it
example,
should be
most often
U times Romans,
companies
So
when they are
U times
transacting, they are
Romans
not
is a
necessarily
typeface.
putting the
The
money
12
across,
is a
but
font
they may use an
size,
insurance company
So now all the description of this typeface will
to
be
transact on
a
their
font,
behalf.
right?
To say,
We'll
yes,
say, for
this man
example,
will
if
be
we
available. In other words,
smaller, you can have the same,
if
the
this
same
person doesn't
typeface will have different fonts.
say,
You
are
would
going to
have a
calculate
typeface,
to
for
us.
example,
So that
two Romans,
underwriting
that is
not
for
considered
example, let's
as
say board,
binding
right?
contract. So
You can
this
have the same
underwriting
new Romans
can be
that is
done
not board,
during
right?
the waiting period.
The same new Romans
without any
that is you can even combine like
But
you
you
have.
can't,
I know sometimes they say italicized, but you could
start
have
transacting on the
for
share.
sure. You could have new
if
Romans
they are
italicized. You could do that
advertised
because the
to
italics
the
is just
public
like you can
during the
combine the
waiting
two
period,
most of them.
these
But the bottom line is
10 days after
the
the
font
issuing of the
is
prospectus.
more or less like you are now describing what these typefaces are. Let's see more if you can try to like here, just a little bit description. When you look at a page of type, right? When you look at a page of type, like if this is a page, right? You can say,
So the-
what typeface is this, right? You're talking about that one. What typeface is this, eh?
the assignment in the
What force was used to set that, right?
don't
So
normally
this is the typeface, right?
I
But
gave you, but
it could
you
be
see it
maybe
on the portal.
it was
Okay.
14 size,
Because
right?
I will
So it means a typeface that used
closing
the font
date I gave
size of 14.
14th, I think.
So that's how you can use to describe the two. Because what you are looking at
also indicated
is
14th.
not a font, right? But it's a product
I will expect
of a font. When I say a product of the font, if we enlarge, if we highlight this at the go out the 40 size and put 20, it's going to look like much more huge, right? So what you're going to be seeing is just a product of what font has done to this typeface,
highlight
right? So I don't know if you are able to differentiate, because I'm trying to differentiate the two. Although, as I've said, you are usually going to find people who are going to be calling typeface as font, right? That this font is new Roman, new Romans, new times Romans.
shares or debentures.
But for you, what I'm telling you is like new times Romans is a typeface.
It's found
right?
that
While
information
the
that
manipulation of it,
presented
if it's going to be bold, if it's going to be size 14, or maybe it's too small like 9, it's going to be, that's a font now. Font size, Chakoti, something like that. I don't know if it's clear on the right level, because I'm trying to differentiate. Are you able to differentiate? Because it seems like you're lost. Who is lost?
omits
Who is not lost? Because I'm saying this is important because wherever you go, maybe you have been a graphic designer before,
certain
right?
particulars.
But you reach a scenario whereby you need to be using the same graphics or text.
Believe
now you have to explain it
in this.
So you'll be laughed at when you are calling something good, like something which is different from what it is, right? So that's why I wanted to be so sure that you are clear. Are you ladies,
composition,
except the one who just come, the one that you are here, are you
words?
have you understood what I'm saying? Are you
and
be able
true
to
is that
appreciate the two?
you know for sure
Are you?
that your company
Yes or no? Behind
is
you.
not registered on the
So why are you not
Stock
asking?
Exchange. But you mentioned
Asking questions, because
also
I assume that you know. You tell me where is the confusion? You tell me this is. I don't understand why. Maybe this. I will explain before I move on. But so, like
misleading information.
Of course, like I mean, there are so many things that are a little bit technical.
Like,
so I can't go to each and every detail. I just have to select. So if whatever I have selected is easier if you understood from the beginning, right? So
throughout.
Right. Okay. For the one who are just coming,
in the whole country, Malawi.
Like
yet you have only
communication using
an
text,
operating office.
Right? So we say text is part of
so someone
graphics. We talked about using
goes to
vector
power
and the bitmap images. So now we say because of all these graphics, most of these graphic designs, they do have text, right? But if you see those
your
text,
statement,
you see they're not the same type.
Misleading.
They look different,
because
some you see you have a different what is called a typeface,
right? In
so I will say what a typeface is. It's like,
but
more or less
sometimes
like if
you also
and I think the easiest it will be the name itself is telling us typeface.
Very important information,
right? Gope. What you are seeing. Like,
give
you can recognize
example of,
for example, if you say something is
at
when
one
you
time
go on word and you highlight a word and you go to size 20,
closed because
Size 20 can be anything,
gave
but it's not a process. It's not like a text,
you like
typeface, because any typeface can
for
be
example,
enlarged to 20
certain
to 30.
information, maybe
But now
relating
there is a
to duty
specific
or
shape
to,
of a certain text
taxes
that when you look at
that
them, you know
forced
them. That this is a new Romans,
MRI
right?
to
This is the
close down
Helvetica,
your
right?
company.
So
And
those
maybe even
differences that you
issue
can recognize them, that
caused
that's the
closure
face we are talking about.
has not yet been
Right?
resolved.
So the typeface is just how they make up for that particular
MRI.
letter,
And
character.
you omit
Right?
that
While as I said, the font,
information.
it has to
Then
do with
you shall
the explanation or like the characterization of it to say
compensate some people
whether
that
it is
may
bold
suffer
or it is not bold
some
or it
costs
is
relating to
italicized, it's not
I'm
italicized,
saying this
or
because
all those
because of
descriptions
that
you can, after
information,
you
someone may
manipulate it a little bit. That's where
the
you
misleading
talk about
information
the
or
font.
the
Why? So I wanted to
information
be so
or
sure
the
that
untrue
you are
information
able. I
in
know that
regard
is,
shares.
the difference
Let's
is
say,
closer, but I wanted to
because
be
of
sure
that,
that
instead
at
of
least
buying
you should
shares in
see
another
the
company,
difference between the two, right?
he buys
Or
2
even
million
from the
shares
beginning. When we talk about typeface, have you understood what
in your
typeface is? What
10
a
million
font is,
shares
right?
in your
If
company.
you see whatever you see, what you say,
And because of that misstatement,
what do you
he
see?
loses out because
You see characters.
maybe
These are
MRI
characters.
comes back,
So what I'm saying
closes
is,
again.
the characters that
That
you are
means you are
seeing,
not trading.
regardless of that they are small or not small, if you can recognize that this
You
character
are going to
is
be liable.
when you
And
go like
the
we
people
try to
that
go
are
on your
going
way
to be liable are
and try to be changing.
the directors
All
that
the typefaces, it's going to be
sign,
changing after you highlight.
or the prospective
So you see that
directors that sign,
highlight
or the agent
box.
that signed
That's
on
a
behalf
specific
of
type
these
of
people.
typeface. So
Because
sometimes you can put. So
if
when
I am a
you do that,
director,
you are going to know typeface.
I am
Igbo
signing
language, right?
to a
Typeface.
misleading
Now, if you
information.
say, okay, I want to write,
I'm
at the most of
committing
the lecture
myself
will tell you
to it,
use
and I'll become
you
liable.
Romans, right? That's the typeface. So you're going to write.
So it's
then you highlight
even if it's a company that
so you are choosing a typeface.
is the one that
But if they say you Romans
specified,
12,
I mentioned
12 is the
when I
size.
was
So
announcing about,
it's the size you are putting
as I was
there.
talking
It's a
about
font
the announcement
size.
of
Right. So
of
font
the shares
will
that
be
are
either you are
available
taking a
when
text,
you are making the
carry
invitation, that it
how
can be
big
either the
or bold
directors
or not bold or
signing,
something. So
or it
it
can
font
be
has to do with that.
an agent
But it's
or
talking about the
a
same
company. So
thing. But I'm just
any
saying
one of
the
these,
very element
because
is a
let's say
typeface.
the
Meaning
company
you
hasn't
can't
been
call
set up,
it it's a
it
font.
has failed to
You can call
start
it
off,
it's a typeface.
but people have committed their
But
money into it,
a typeface
and
that
then
has
they
a
have
font
lost
size
that
of
money.
12.
That means
Right?
you,
That
the
has got
directors,
a font size of
individuals
something.
that
So that's how
sign
you're supposed
will
to
become
measure it,
liable.
right? So that's what I wanted to be clear. At least
Not only
you should be able
you, but
to
also
notice that. I think like an
the
example here is it's like I think you can see here.
the promoters that
What you are
promoted
seeing this side,
company. You remember
these
when
are
we are introducing the
typefaces,
formation
right?
of the company.
What you see that side is a
First,
font, right?
We have
Usually you see that the
promoters
do
who
with
come up with the idea
it has got them to start with
the
the
company,
size, right?
and these
It's smaller,
are the ones that
and then
nominate or
you have
find
like say talk
initial
about
directors.
there are elements like italicize, there is the underlined position, there
And
is
the initial
paint type.
directors are the
I mean,
ones that
I mean, there's my elements of this one, like
initial
do coding, they do use that, but those elements they were trying to manipulate it were to do with the font, like they just changing it.
So
the
they
normal one
the
was like
initial
this,
members of the
showing
company.
that okay, it was
And because they are the initial members of the company,
I would like to change it to look smaller.
Now, when we are talking about
you're
prospectus,
going to
we are going a little further, because now we are talking about,
as I'm saying that they are closer, it's not good completely
shares.
different. It's like
allotment means
you are using
you are now
the same
calling
thing,
up the capital.
but the only thing is like when we talk about the character or letters
to form the capital, which
we are talking about the typeface, and the differences, how different they are. Right? We're talking about that typeface.
And true information.
We're talking about how different they are in terms of
and they
not to
lose
make
that
up,
money,
but
then
in terms
you, the
of
initial
elements, that's where you come to
members
that one.
or
So
the directors
still maybe it might be confusing, but at least you know a little bit. You will understood later on. But this is these
what
are the,
that means is that
differences that maybe we
the
have to
registrar or the
appreciate. What else?
the registrar or the Companies Act
Go
or
ahead.
the legal setup is
Try to
protecting
see this definition. This is going to be
people from being swindled. Or
in a particular typeface.
They are protecting people by using the system of
a complete
setting up a company
plus numbers
to,
and the
defraud
punctuation marks is called
others.
font. Now, this was just said that you
I'll
have
give an example.
An alphabet of
setup.
characters, right? Yeah, but I think this one, let's not draw much of this. I can assure that you get confused with the way I've described the other one. We understood it later on when we go others. But now,
there are some structures of buildings that are
you have different
specific
sizes. You have a specific, like when they say a type of
a group of
family,
people,
right?
That
if you have a font, a typeface,
huge
that will be
residential
have got different variations in terms of manipulation.
Advertised.
Right? So
of course, I think
that will be you could know that this is the same family because the typeface is like it's going to have you're going to have like one family, but different.
But I think because they wanted to have residential, business, and even sports centers. I think they wanted to have a golf course on that place. So people were being invited to buy plots. They were selling plots, and of course with designs of the houses, etc. A lot of people put in a lot of money, but not only individuals, but also companies. I think NBS invested quite a lot of money in terms of loans. I think currently the structures that are there were salvaged by NBS Bank.
Okay. So, let's say an example, like examples of the typefaces, like you see here. You have like Times, you have got Urban Brand, you have Vertica, all these types of typefaces. So I'll say an example of
in essence, people lost money.
A person, right?
The essence,
your person, I mean, you yourselves, you are coming from
these remedies.
How do people know that I think you will be
ultimately?
What made them know?
People should not lose.
They can just look at you and say,
but we know.
Are you related to this person?
People lost quite a
How
lot.
do they know?
Because
that you are related to somebody.
I know some of the directors.
When somebody even asks, no, you look, even
if you look the like directors of that.
So think about a person,
a state that was created.
A foot. I mean,
all their money was taken from them.
A typeface.
Some companies.
Right?
But that won't compensate all the people.
That's a certain face, right?
Money.
Now, the variations that are going to be there
and at the same time
are going to be now belonging
problem was
to
that
font.
I think
it's going to be font, but now
those who are buying
the font is going to be of the same family.
More or less
this is
buying
family, right? So they will say, okay, this is
in my view
different font
NBS
of this family. Meaning, although the font can change, for example, it could be this text will be very large. If it's Times, Lobas, when you enlarge it like this one is 70, you know that okay, it's 70 is too big, but you still know that although it's big, it's Times, right? Although it's small, because what is going to happen to change is going to be only the size, but the way it looks, in terms of makeup, you could be able to say. I think we have seen the other scripts we are going to discover later, which are called the handwriting, right? They are written as if somebody was scribbling, writing using a hand, like it's Kwakwazabe George. You can try to enlarge those. They are going to be big, but they are going to still look like it's a
So
handwriting.
normally,
So I'm saying,
priority
imagine
when
the
it
bigger
comes
one,
to
the Mutwankulu family.
redeeming
Smaller
what
one
has
is the
been
last
lost,
bond.
the
We don't get
greater
Bagadi,
holders
when you look at them, you know what they
as the
belong
first
to the same
priority.
family. That's what I'm talking about. You can still tell, although we are going to family like a dish, because the way their makeup is the same. So fault will be dealing with it. Command will not change it to the extent that you can't recognize this is a
Yeah.
type face. So
Well,
that's what I'm trying to do, to say. So it's just a minimal
it's
difference,
different
but
from
it's something that you can keep in mind.
like I think
To know, because it confuses.
area
Like here,
49,
let's say just a
they
few
built
mentions
houses
of the same very
and
brief
they are
ones. We'll talk
selling
about it
existing
later.
houses. So
Get it?
the houses are already
Say
there.
typeface,
But when
typography
they start
is a
correcting,
sense of using
before they
letter
have
forms
built,
for communication,
it becomes
right?
a little
So
bit of
all the communication
a
that
problem.
whereby we are using letters, it means we are dealing with typography. That's why they say this is typographical. It's something to do with the way you are manipulating letters, the way you are using spaces, because it's not just only letter, but for you to be able to read, it means you have to
Yeah, in
consider
fact, I'm told
the spaces too. Imagine
God
these letters
built
are
that
characters. They didn't
business
have any
setup,
space in between.
but they
They were just
intend to
combined
build
as
another
one.
one at the
Would you
back,
be able to read what they're talking
similar
about?
to the one
You
that
are able to
is
read because when A
and people
is
have
there, there's a
already
gap.
bought.
Then there's
I don't know whether they've
completely
paid
gap.
much
Those
or
gaps
not, or they
are part of
just
your
but
process of
it would be crazy
typography,
to
right?
start paying
That you're going to decide
for
whether the gap
an
should be
existing
bigger or smaller,
structure.
or when whatever you are going to do will
Well,
help in the
sometimes,
communication. Because
but they
you have
are
ever
in
seen some
partnership
other
with
books
Malawi Housing
whereby
Corporation. But
the
when
words
you
are
can
just
lose,
too tight, right?
it doesn't
Small
matter whether
spaces.
it's Malawi.
You have
In
a
fact,
problem to read,
you
right?
can lose out.
But if you have the way we have done it,
Yeah, but
very large fonts,
I'm not sure
bigger spaces,
how
you could even read it from afar. But imagine I did I put it very small. Because this one I'm using here. This is the size, this should be 22.
in each setup
22 font size
protect
or something. The normal text we use in I think our
being
assignments,
used.
we use 12, right? And I use the 12 here. You'll have a problem to even read.
to buy
So
shares
it's
into
part
an
of
existing
that.
company.
Typeface, a
Those
distinctive
are
set
some
of
of the
letters,
challenges.
right? So that's maybe
I'm
this is the
aware
shortest
another
description
company
of what a
called
typeface is.
InnoBuild
A
is
distinctive set of letters. Like if you say prosod,
it InnoBuild?
we are all
It's
people,
also
all of
been,
us.
I think,
But why are
declared
we
bankrupt.
different? Although we are all, for example, sometimes people say, no, blacks looks alike.
No, it's been
Or
declared
Chinese, but
bankrupt.
Chinese are look alike. Like they're the same.
But I know
But when you go,
they have
wow,
been buying
everybody was all
land
do.
from
But even Chinese are going to
villages.
anasojera because you buy
Well, the setup that I've
when
seen
you look at them,
that they do buying that land,
but there are
normally they
small
go
differences
to
that themselves they see.
place and they
You
ask to buy
you also see that.
they may
So
buy
the small differences that
land from a
will
person.
make a person to
They
be
will pay
about
him
those are the
certain
distinctive set
amount,
we're talking
then
about, like for a letter, whereby
he waits
they will
for
have
the
it will
year
be
to
the same
get
A,
another amount,
right?
and sometimes
But there will be another A
they pay
which is
3
looking
times,
different from
sometimes
A
twice.
with a waki. But
But
A even twice.
these people in
One
the
of the
village
A will
may not know
Kabina
that
win
the
A get
company
what's
that
slanting, but they are all A's.
they are waiting
So
that
for
they will
these
give
different
them
types of A's we are talking
money
about,
next
the
year
typefaces we are
is
talking
being
about, and
declared
we are going to
bankrupt
explore why they are different. Because they are different
is being
for a
declared
purpose.
bankrupt in
The
their
purpose is
case.
for communication. So there will be other text typefaces. Typefaces that will be important for other complicated type of. For example, have we ever seen somebody under let me say
As we have
application
stated,
letter using
a prospectus
italics?
in
Application
its
letter
real sense has to
in
be
application letter. Have we ever seen something like that?
registered.
Why is it all application letter whereby you use
Registered
all these
at
false
the
user
register of companies, just like
Why
But
is it
you
you
are
have
registering a prospectus.
to use a font?
Because a
That doesn't mean
prospectus is
fancy,
demanding that
right?
certain people
Because they know,
that are
okay,
not
we are communicating,
related to
this
the
is serious
company
business.
should put in money into
So
the
we are not
company.
trying to make
It's
this look
unlike
beautiful.
if
We are just sending the message.
I
So
ask
whoever is
you
going to be
as a
writing will
group to say,
specifically choose a
we
specific
know each other,
typeface, which will be appropriate
let's set up a
to the type
company.
of communication
I'm a
you are going
promoter,
to be
I have an
communicating.
idea.
So that's why I've said
We
that
can set up a
for
company.
graphic communicators,
And
for us,
through that idea,
who you work,
we
graphic
should become
artists or
initial
designers,
shareholders, and in this case,
you use
initial directors.
a specific
Then that's an
typeface
agreement between us.
for
And
a
normally when you are
purpose.
setting
You
up,
don't just pick
no money
a
is involved.
typeface without
You are just
a reason,
omitting to
right?
say, I'm
So
going
you
to
should
take
actually know. For example, if you are going to be a designer, they will tell you,
another
okay,
person says, I'll take
you are going to be
60,000
designing
shares.
a front page of
Another
your magazine.
says, I'll take 10,000
So you should be able to
shares.
know that which are the
Another
fonts,
says,
typefaces that will look good
whatever.
in the front of a
will take
magazine.
Maybe
So you go for
70,000
all those,
shares.
what
And then
size, right?
when you add this,
So
you are saying
that's what we're talking about.
we
A font,
have
I think we
190
talked about it already, but I don't
nominal
want to
shares.
confuse you further.
We have just agreed.
Commit alphabet plus
So
numbers,
if we want to
punctuation
register a
marks and
company, we can
all
register
this stuff
without any
go
money
back to it
involved.
later on.
We are
But
just
when we
registering
go
shares
to look at
and we are
specific
indicating
for
that
fonts,
this one will
right?
take
Because in
this,
font,
and then we
we
become
will
members.
look at it
It's
now with the
at the
makeup
point of allotment.
that the font,
Allotment
because the
means
font
now money has to
we are
come.
going to be having,
Do
as
we
I
have
said,
a
it's just
company
like
that is
it, but
existing,
a
or we
specific
just have an idea?
makeup. It has got a makeup, right? Of how
Many years
it's
ago,
being recognized that this is
we
a
had an
font
idea. We
for
had
this
a Christian
particular
organization
maybe
somewhere.
family,
We
right?
wanted to open
So we're going to talk about
we
the
asked
serif
fellow Christians.
type,
Well, there were
and
some
also we're
people
going to
who
talk
were
about the
promoters,
sans serif
initial directors,
types, and
and
also
we
leading.
put in some money. It
So
wasn't much
when
money
we talk
in
about the
those years.
serifs,
Uh,
these are just the tips that you need to know,
so we
because
put in
you have seen that there are some other
but up to
texts
now,
like the way this
the
one.
company has
Have you
not
seen the
yet
letters? Do you see that the
implemented,
you see another A,
those days.
kubasabwera kugati kuti A
We knew
kusabwera
what we
kupitirira
were
kana
doing. It's unlike when
pamazabwera B kubasakhala
profit
topitirira
comes and then
to strokes.
it gets the
You
money
see
and
some
sets
other
up his own
letters
company
whereby they have good
using
strokes.
your money without you
Like
paying.
as I said, there's going to be an A, will have
But in our
something
case,
up,
it
down,
was,
there will
I
be
think
J, is going to
the
have
people
something,
didn't have
like these strokes were coming.
capacity
If you see this text,
manage
the typeface,
such
doesn't
an
have strokes,
investment, and
right? For
I think
example,
most of us
we can
didn't
give
put
an
in enough
example
money
of,
because we
let me
didn't
see, where there are
believe
strokes.
we didn't believe in ourselves that this will work,
Let's see.
but we had to show that we are
Okay. Or an example would be like
Christians,
this
so
one,
we
the
had to put in something.
big
But
building.
it didn't
You see the
work.
big building, eh?
Maybe it will work one
This
day.
big building, the texts
It's a
are different from
Christian
that where the
organization,
death
not
of
a
the little
church.
man, right?
Yeah.
If you see this text, the character, you see, they have got a little bit
good number.
elongations, eh?
It was
See, we have
quite a
got
lot.
multiplied like topic,
Over 100 people.
so you have some other
I hope mine,
typefaces whereby they will have like, they'll be like that one. Sanzikadi topic, whatever. Okay, so these is strokes that will be going beyond the character.
I have no idea.
They are the ones
I
that
can't
are
remember.
serifs. What
I mean,
serifs you're talking about?
what I'm saying
You have got a
these things
typeface
happen.
with
Yeah.
without
Something
those
at a
strokes.
campus like this.
They are called sans serifs.
works.
That's what we want to talk
Some have worked.
about. That is like
as a
here.
promoter,
Talk about the
I
serif
want to
type.
swindle some
The
people.
serif, like we talk about here, the type
A lot of people are coming
type with
ideas
tiny
where they are
strokes, right?
swindling others.
At the tips of each letter. You have a letter, different strokes. Those are strokes. If you have got the typeface without those strokes,
There are
it means that is
also
going to be
remedies
a sans
for inducing
serif type. So in terms of my characters, these fonts or typefaces, usually when you take them as broader terms, in terms of how their fonts will look like.
whether to put them on the
Broadly, all these fonts is either they will be falling on the serif or the sans
No, I can
serif.
send them.
They'll be different. They might be bold, small, but there will be a
what I'm
board
saying is,
with those strokes. Or they'll be
there are
bold
times
without
when-
those strokes. So if they don't have those strokes, They
I
are
remember when
called
those
SaaS serifs. So you see them when you go to your
houses were being
graphic
sold.
software or your Word
One of the
document.
people that
When you
was
go in
promoting
typefaces,
them
you see some
happened to
typefaces will be
be a
having
personal friend,
strokes,
some sort.
which are serifs.
He used
Some
to
will be having
find
no
me
strokes.
whenever he finds
right?
me. I say,
But usually, most
"You're
of
wasting your
the
time.
typefaces that are used for business
These are very cheap
are the
at
ones
moment,
with
but
the
within a
serifs.
few
I gave an
years,
example, like when you say
this will be
new Times
gold,
Romans.
which
Check
is
new
true.
Times
If it
Romans. You can
worked,
check it in your
those
computer.
people who bought
It has got serifs.
those
Those
houses
prolongate.
or
And most of the times,
those
when you
plots
see application
would
letters,
have
they use
been
those.
quite
Most of
big
these,
by now.
the sans serifs, they are
But
maybe for graphics
I
or
don't know
other
whether
communication. But most of
the
the times,
people
with
believe,
business something,
oh,
they
that's
use
the director,
that. But
the
those are
promoters
elements.
of
We are
the
going to
institution
see
that I'm
later
talking
on.
about, whether they believed it
The space that
but
is
it was too good to
between
be
these lines,
true,
if you are doing
because
your graphic
I think I know
design,
one of
the
the
space that
people
you
that
leave
lost quite a lot.
between one line
He
with
had
another,
staked
right?
in
Or one
almost
type
3
with
houses
another type,
there,
right? Is what is
but he
called
lost
the
all of them.
leading.
What they are
You can
saying
see
is,
sometimes they say
if any
it writes like
person
leading.
makes
So
a
when they say, okay,
statement
what is the leading?
or
Even
promise
you
or
go to a Word
forecast,
document, you see somewhere
which he
there's
knows
leading.
is
When they say leading,
misleading.
it means they're talking about
That's
the
why I'm
gaps.
saying I don't know
Because sometimes
whether
they'll tell
these
you,
guys
you have seen
were
that spaces,
deliberately
you have to put
misleading
sentences, maybe
others,
line after line, there
or
should be
it was
1.5. Somewhere you see that you can highlight it, you see how
a
1.5 will
financial
be
mishap.
more space, they'll say 1.0,
I'll
the
give
lines will be
another
closer,
example.
right?
There was a
When they
company,
say maybe
some of you,
2.0, you see
when
like
you are
there'll be
going
lines will be
to
far apart, right? So it's just
you're
leading, but
coming
it's to
from
do
Gateway
with the
Mall,
way you're going to be using
this side of
your characters, right? So
opposite ABC,
I mean, don't
that
confuse.
land used to
So this is
have
another broader term
company
now.
that was
A broader term in terms of
growing
the
rose
same now
flowers.
type. Because now when
In
we
fact,
maybe let me put it
they were
into perspective.
exporting
When I
was
say
it every week.
font, right?
In Malawi,
And
used
when
to
I
be a
say
flight
typeface, I'm
probably
trying
along
to
with
differentiate
Rwandan.
the two, but I'm
So they
talking
were
about one
exporting
thing,
flowers to Europe
type,
from
right?
that.
What I'm saying
The other
type
thing
is
that
the
you
character
see
like
deep
this one. It's type,
used to be a
So
dam
whether it's
for
going to be
watering
manipulated
the
to show font,
rose
it's
flowers.
still type.
I know
When
there's another
it's
company
going to
that
be
does
to
Zucom
say it
flowers.
belongs to this
Also,
group, it's
they're
still the same,
exporting,
right?
but
So in broader terms,
but this one was exporting
elements that are going
big time.
like
But I
I mean
think in
the type
1998,
could
they
be
got a
maybe
huge loan in US
distinguished into
dollars,
two broader terms as a
and
broader terms.
then they
Either you're going to
invested
have
in
what
that
is called the heavy
place quite
type
huge, and I think they
or
had another
softer or lighter type.
estate for
Meaning,
rose flowers in
when you
Gombe
say this is
somewhere
heavy,
around the
it will come really, the way it looks here. We can say
but what happened
it
was
looks
they
say
quite
it's not body.
got
We can say that it's light.
heavily.
Imagine body
The
that
November
could be
devaluation
heavy.
that we had.
Assuming
So
that
their loan
you are putting something in your maybe in a plate.
became huge because it
If
was
it's
US
something,
dollars.
it's
And although
not
they
full,
were exporting some of the
the
flowers,
plate. It's not
but
taking
their
the whole plate.
value
And
of
something
whatever
is
they had
looking like
was
it is
lost
at the top
in the translation. That's
of the
how the
plate.
company ended.
You could just assume that okay, the one
If
that
they
is
had asked
more
people
full,
to
that
buy
one could
into
be
that
heavier
company,
than this one, right?
it wouldn't have
By
been
looking at it,
because
or for example, let me assume
they
that
misled them, but the economic
I
circumstances
don't know what example, what
had
example,
changed.
but that's just an example. That the way you look at it,
Ended
something will look heavier, something will
causing them to
look
lose
softer by the
huge
way
amounts of money.
makeup.
And
So
I
I'm
think
saying,
that was the end of
I think you have
the
seen it before,
company.
whereby
They
you have a
liquidated
text.
because
When
they
you
couldn't
make
continue.
it
That's
bold,
why you have
you
that
even
land
see
still
changing
hanging
size,
there.
right? A little bit like as if something has changed.
So
when you remove the board, it seems like it's
I'm not
slipped.
talking about eras. I'm talking about
So
companies.
that's the
Companies
thing.
that-
You have, let me say, you can have
say
maybe
19
thousands
days. Yeah,
of
thereabouts.
typefaces, right?
Yeah.
But these
it
thousands
has
of
nothing to do
thousands
with
of typefaces,
individuals. It
they
has
could
everything
be
to do with
either very heavy, meaning they could
I don't know who was
be
president.
looking like
and
they are
I won't know. Even now, I
those
don't know
elements whereby, as you can see, let me just talk about
I
the
know?
heavy
How
elements.
do I know?
Heavy elements, you have got these characters like,
Companies Act, a
you can,
company-
when it's
company law,
large,
there is,
right?
no-
When it's
no
large,
president.
you know that is
I've
heavy,
only
because it's
mentioned
large.
about the registrar.
Right?
Maybe you should ask
When it
me
is
who
bold,
the register of companies.
you take it as heavy again.
Maybe that would make
When it
sense
goes dark
as a
colors,
question.
right? Because sometimes you can have
Yeah,
the text
but,
which is light. For
I'm
example, with white,
differentiating
whatever.
that
We have got some other
clause of
text,
the
you must
company
get the black.
compared to
So the
the
text is like
clause of
those
the company that
odd type.
selling
Some of them
plots
there's a lot of
on
heavy concentration
the,
of black.
uh,
So because of
airport
that,
road.
the text is
The
called to
other
say
one,
heavy
I would
because
think in my mind,
why is it heavy?
it was a little bit misleading.
If you go into
was a
graphic
lot of
design
information,
in
but-
general now, not just
Well,
text,
if a
In
company
graphic
like
design,
UBS Bank,
the way they
What is
decide,
it?
even when you have a newspaper, right?
some
Have
of
you ever
the
wondered
information was created.
how they
But,
decide to say picture,
what
photograph,
the Companies Act
right?
in relation to
Bawa
prospectus
headline
is
and
saying,
carry up. Text Kalu. Why do they decide that? You discover that
present
there are some
any
other characters on the
misleading
graphic
information.
design, like for example, newspaper.
that
When they place them somewhere, you are going
give
to go
false or
there.
deceptive
Whoever's going to be ready
information,
will go there first. For
or
example,
you
if you have
conceal
got an image,
certain information